Today on Templar's Tabletop, we'll be reviewing Mutants and Mastermind, the second edition. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Well, we're all about making your role-playing games AAA. Affordable, approachable, and awesome. And thank you for joining us on this second episode of Hero Quest, where we're reviewing super heroic RPG games to talk about what we like, what we don't, and trying to find little pieces that I can apply to my upcoming game, S3 Lite. Finding the best pieces and turning it into something truly super. You guys see what I did because we're talking about. Okay, we're going to jump into the video here, and let's start talking about this game. Mutants and Masterminds is from Green Ronin Publishing, and it came out, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, approximately the time that the third edition of Dungeons & Dragons, specifically 3.5, had begun. Let's start with some of the things that I like. It starts off with some good use of character classes. I really like the name Paragon here for the kind of the Superman style. It's got a pretty nice mix. Powerhouse, playing a character that can mimic other people's abilities. You even got your Batman style, and that's under the Costume Adventurer. However, if you take a look at the feat section, we're going to circle that and come back to that later, because this is where I kind of started to have some criticisms of the game as well, at least for myself personally. Now, third edition of Dungeons & Dragons was a little bit polarizing to some in the community because you started continually adding complexity to the types of characters that you could build. Now, if you're a 5th edition player, 3rd edition is what laid the groundwork for things like feats and a lot of the customization in classes. It really expanded on those concepts. However, you could also get to a point where some people would think that it went a little bit too far. There's a critique of the line of Pathfinder games. They joke that at least the 1st edition was called Mathfinder because instead of creating a character, you're like running a spreadsheet. And so there's always a little bit of a tension between player options and having lots of different things you can build and the complexity of building a character and the amount of options that you need to know. Specifically, and my biggest criticism of that is that I'm usually on the running the game side. I don't get to play as often. And so as running the game, the more complexity that you add, it actually makes it a little bit challenging to keep track of all the different things. And that's what I'll get to. And specifically, I'll talk about feats here in a moment. But let's look at a few more good things. So overall, art, I think, is very well done. I think that, like I said, the pre-generated characters or the character classes they have is good. I think that all things considered, they did a good job of converting the Dungeons & Dragons system to a superhero setting. If you've played D&D before, a lot of the stats, strength, dexterity, constitution, all of those things are going to be pretty similar. And you'll notice here that there's a much wider range of ability scores. So usually in D&D, capping out at like +5 for a normal character, that's pretty good. You can get up to +20. And so certainly to accommodate the super heroic nature of the game, things are a little bit different there. But as I said, we'll talk about feats here in just a minute. But other things that I like, I think that the layout and the art is pretty good. And I think they actually did a pretty good job on the power system. So this is an example of some powers. For instance, here's the nullify power. You can nullify or counter a target's powers. For 1 point, you can type 1 power of a particular descriptor, counter all powers, or more. So you've got a point buy system, and it gives you a lot of different options on the powers that you can buy. It gives great stats of how far away you can use it, how long that it lasts, etc. So if you want to play a D&D light game, this might actually be a good fit for you with superheroes. So I would recommend it on that basis. However, why didn't I like it, or why didn't I ever get a chance to get it on the table very much? I'll flip back here to the very end, and I will talk about that right now. So I'm just going to go to an example of the bestiary or some of the characters that, some of the pre-generated characters that you might fight. And let's go to, okay, here's a great example. So this is the Kung Fu Killer. And I'm not sure how well you can see this, but in his stat block, he's got all the stats here. All that stuff's pretty standard. But if you go down to the feats, let me start counting. How many different feats would you need to know to run this person? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, etc., etc. So my biggest complaint against Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 and all of its clones, all of its derivatives, which it falls under, is the feat clutter. Basically, you are getting to a point where you have so many different options that, especially on the running the side, if I wanted to run a Batman-style character, I would need to know at least 10 plus feats. Now, you might be typing furious in the comments, well, you just have to learn the game and learn the system. And that's true. If I learned it and if I spent the time to, actually go through it, there's a chance that I would be able to know what all of it did reflexively. Combat reflexes, pun intended. I digress. Anyway, that's a feat name. But sometimes it's kind of like the cost benefit of how much time would I need to feel like I could run this game smoothly and proficiently? How much time would I need to put into it versus how much would I actually be able to play it? And so when it comes to a really complex game, for me at least, it has to be a really high sell of I know I'd get a chance to play it a lot, because otherwise I don't want to take the time to learn it if I'm not going to get to play it a lot. Here's really where it comes to basically one of my philosophies on this channel is that AAA, affordable, approachable, and awesome. And approachable and awesome, the way that they interact at the table is that I want a rule system that I can keep the story moving well. There's not a lot of moments of having to look things up or kind of players fumbling around. And the higher the complexity is on any system, in my mind, oftentimes the more difficult is to actually get to the point where it can be approachable, you can learn it, and awesome, it keeps the story moving. So let's wrap up the review. Who is this game for? If you want a superhero game with a high degree of character customization and you've got the time and the aptitude to put in to learn the rules, this might be a great game for you. However, if you're looking for a game that's a little bit more rules light, or you want to, have a little bit more of a streamlined process, you may want to look elsewhere. What is my takeaway from this game? I really like their assortment of character classes, and I really like a lot of the layout and a lot of the choices that they made, but it was just a little bit too dense for me. So on a scale of 1 to 10, for me, I would give this game, that's tough, probably a 7. It is a good D&D game, but to get to the 8, 9, or 10 range of being, in my mind, great, it would just need to be a little bit more rules light. But that's my opinion. What do you think? Have you played Mutants and Masterminds or any of its derivatives? Is it too crunchy? Is it too much? Or am I totally wrong? Do I just need to get good, skill issue, and actually learn how to play this game? Let me know in the comments below. So thank you so much for joining us on Hero Quest, where we're going to be finding the greatest superhero role-playing game of all time. And I appreciate you sticking around. So until next time, happy gaming and God bless.